Terrific. And you've unmuted, right? Yeah. Okay. Morning, everybody. Nice to see everybody this morning. This is a Golden Diviner morning. Golden Diviner is a Cliff Tea. We're in a Cliff Tea series. Last week, we started with Quasar. Next week, we'll have Theatrical. So we talked a lot of setup about Cliff Teas. Today, we're going to talk a little bit more about setup, and we're also going to talk about cultural terroir aspects, as well as one or two more physical terroir aspects. So let's start out again as a reminder of the physical terroir, remembering, of course, that most of the tea grows in valleys among these volcanic mountains. And as a bigger picture, so that you get the entire concept, the mountains rise up on the border of Jiangxi, and they prevent cold air from the north sweeping into the area. Because as those mountains rise up, it's also holding in the moisture from the ocean, which comes across Fujian Province. So it's a place where the two air masses meet. And so that's one of the reasons you have so much moisture. It's such a comfortable and temperate environment. Lots of rain, lots of water. Really a great place for growing tea. So that's the emphasis on the physical terroir. What a little bit more about, let's have a little bit more about the cultural terroir. Now, I told you stories before about the monk who was going to go, not the monk, but the scholar who was going to go test and fell ill. There's yet another story, and this is related to Scarlet Rope. And I like this story as well. So this is about an official. This official worked during the Tang Dynasty. Tang Dynasty, just to get you situated in terms of eras, was roughly between 618 and 960. So this person was working probably in the 700s. He was promoted as a new emperor came to power. This particular person, surnamed Shen, was promoted to head the libraries, head research. So the emperor, before he put him in charge, and by the way, this was a lineage promotion. In other words, you were given the symbol of the position, you wore it on a chain, and when you were ready, you passed it on to your heir, and they passed it to the heir. So it was a symbolic lineage position. R&D in the library. And this guy was really good at that. And so the emperor, when he awarded this position, said to Shen, he said, okay, here's what I really want. I want you to find the herbs of longevity. I want you, either the herbs or if there's any other substance that's going to make life for me forever. That was the assignment. So no small assignment, right? But Shen, who loved researching, gets in the library, and this is what he's doing all the time. Emperor, 3 or 4 years later, calls Shen in and says, hey, you know what? I have news that in the south of China, there is this place which has some sort of herb which satisfies what I'm looking for. I want you to go get it. I want you to go research it and bring back all the information. Now, Shun, who was kind of a bookworm, not really a big traveler, didn't really want to do all this traveling, but hey, this is the emperor who ordered this up. Okay, travels to the south with a retinue. Everything is pretty good. Gets down to the south, goes and visits the people and gets the herbs, gets books on the herbs, and then thinks, okay, ready to bring this back to the emperor. But he dilly-dallies in this area. And as he's dilly-dallying in the area, time is passing. And in order to get back, he's got to pass through mountain passes. And passing through mountain passes, what does that imply as you get closer to the winter? It gets cold. Travel is harder. So Shun is traveling back to the capital. And by the way, at that time, the capital was not Beijing. It was Chang'an, which is today's Xi'an. So scholars traveling back. And remember, I said this isn't a big, burly, healthy guy. No, this guy is a bookworm. And as he's traveling, even though he's all bundled up, he gets sick. And he gets sicker. Things aren't looking good. He's coughing, his lungs are congested, coughs up blood. Things are looking very bad. And so they stop at a temple. The monks take him in. The monks tell the retinue, hey, this guy's about had it. I don't think he's going to make it. That's what the head monk said. And everybody's thinking, oh no, yeah, that's a problem. Then the monk who liked Shun told everybody to get out of the room. They got out of the room. And the monk brought in something and brewed it. And the aroma was just fabulous, fantastic. And got Shun to drink a little bit. And for a week, kind of nursed him back. And Shun recovered fully. And he said, what in the world? How did that happen? So the monk, again, because he developed a relationship with Shun, said, I'm going to give you a little box. And this is the herb that I used. And in fact, it was scarlet rope, original scarlet rope. So Shun secretes this, puts it in a safe place, travels back to the capital, brings all the stuff back to the emperor. And the emperor, of course, is happy and disappointed at the same time because whatever it was he brought back, while useful, wasn't that real everlasting life type of herb. Emperor falls ill. Sister goes to Shun and says, oh, please, please, please search the archives. Is there anything you can do for my brother? And Shun takes this little box, goes to the emperor, tells everybody, all the doctors, to leave the room, and then he brews up this tea. In 3 days, the emperor is totally recovered. And everybody goes back to doing what they're supposed to be doing. And about a week later, the emperor calls in Shun and says, you failed. And everybody at court gasps, what do you mean I failed? This herb that you brought back isn't a long life herb. But he says, you saved my life. I don't know what it is you gave me, but you saved my life. And then Shum produced the Scarlet Robe. And so this is another one of those stories about Scarlet Robe. And I'm talking to you about Scarlet Robe because I'm going to talk in even more detail about how to understand Scarlet Robe. Because there's a great misunderstanding about Scarlet Robe, and it goes deeper and deeper and deeper into the tea industry. And all of you, as the 99 percenters, those of you who are the 1%ers, you too. And it's really important for you to understand this. And by the way, so Shun gets congratulated. He leaves his honorary heritage position pendant with the monk. The emperor gives him actual physical robes to put on the Scarlet Robe bushes, and hence the name Scarlet Robe. So that's that part of the story. But what's the story today with Scarlet Robe? There is in the tea world, every time you see the term Scarlet Robe, the antennae should go up because there's very, very little really good Scarlet Robe. Scarlet Robe has become a synonym for any tea from the Wulong Mountains. So if you go in China and talking with people in China and they say, oh, yeah, I love Scarlet Robe from the Wulong Mountains, and then you try what they have, it may not taste anything at all like what you think Scarlet Robe might taste like, because it's a completely different varietal. And that's accepted practice because Scarlet Robe has risen to the level of being a synonym for all cliff tea. So be aware of that. Really hard to get good blends of Scarlet Robe. Most Scarlet Robe is a bad blend because it's a cover-up. And let me explain what that cover-up really implies. So farmers, and this is mostly outside of the Zhongyan or in the mountain area, they'll take the leftovers of whatever tea they're processing and heavily roast it, blend it with others, roast some more, and then put it on a robe with Scarlet Robe. Put it on the market, I should say, as Scarlet Robe. Oh, by the way, they charge a high price for it. So you can immediately tell that when you look at the leaves, because the leaves are so uneven, you know something's wrong. When you're thinking of Scarlet Robe, I'm going to give you an insider's view. There is some clonal activity related to Scarlet Robe, but most of that is not available to consumers. A little bit is, and it's very, very expensive. What's more available, but less understood, is, do you remember Polestar? We're sold out now. But we used to have a tea called Polestar here. Polestar was the original transplant of Scarlet Robe in the 1960s. And for those who can get Polestar #1, that is as close to the original Scarlet Robe as you're going to come. So that gives you a little bit better background. And it gives you an understanding of why Scarlet Robe these days is a blend. The original bushes, you can't pick. Everything else off of that would be some sort of clone or some sort of transplanting. And there's just not that much of it. So again, for the market demand, most of that is not what you would consider a single varietal called Scarlet Rose. So that's important to understand. Let's continue with the terroir discussion, but let's link it to cultural terroir. You have in the mountain, we've talked about in the mountain endlessly. And this is this 7.6 or 7.7 square kilometer area, special area from a soil standpoint, climate standpoint, famously the best of the best of the cliff teas comes from there. The most expensive of the cliff teas comes from there. The hardest to come by. In recent years, there's been permission to call an additional area as part of in the mountain. So remember, we've talked about before half in the mountain, Banjungyan. In the mountain, Zhengyan, Banjungyan. These years, local authorities have given permission to call Banjungyan as in the mountain. So that's increased the area dramatically. So it has to be within a river. There's a river that's kind of goes around the whole area, but it's a much larger area. Outside of that, between the river and the new village, when they moved everybody out of the Wulong Mountains, there's what they call outside, Zhouyan, just outside of the Zhengyan area. And so you have tea produced there. Is it the same in terms of flavor? Is the terroir the same? And the answer is no. That's a much lesser grade, but it's still related because it's within the same relative area. And then you have outside of the mountain. So this is outside of the village that was created when they moved all the people from the Wulong Mountains in the 70s and 80s into a place outside. And this is farmers, not people. The farmers from the Wulong Mountains, because it was becoming a World Heritage place. They didn't want any houses within the mountain, or within the World Heritage Site is what I should say. And so then you have tea growing outside the mountain. This is the tea for cliff tea you should avoid because it's just no good. Oh, I said that in the wrong way. And I acknowledge I said that in the wrong way. It's not that it's no good. It doesn't match up to the same flavor profile and the same richness and the same depth that in the mountain provides a cliff tea drinker. So from that perspective, it doesn't match up. That's what I should have said, and that's what I am saying. Okay, now I'm still in balance here. Want to talk a little bit more within the mountain, because within the mountain, even in that 7.7 square kilometer area, and you have a little map of that from last week, there are differentiations. Each of those names that you see on the map has a varietal that ideally grows in that area. And that's where you get the best flavor of that particular varietal. And so even as you become more and more sophisticated with identifying what's in the mountain and what's not in the mountain, there then comes the question of what bushes, and usually it's older bushes, and we're talking anywhere from 30 to 70, maybe a little bit older, maybe to 100 years old, that the farmers over time have found let's process this a certain way in general, because in general, it's going to give us a certain flavor. And that could be different from a location that's as close as half a mile away of how those bushes are going to be processed. So when you're thinking about this, you have hand processed, you have semi-hand processed, and you have totally machine processed, including machine picked. Now, the machine picked is the least compelling of all the teeth, and none of it is machine picked within the mouth. That's all outside the mouth. They actually use a machine. You don't get a uniform cut, and the flavor just isn't the same. The hand process and semi-hand process all have an opportunity to be outstanding flavor. And generally speaking, you'll see more uniformity. Will you see precise uniformity? No, because hand process does have some variation in what you end up with as an end result. But in terms of flavor and processing, you're going to get the most interesting flavors. Can you get interesting flavors in the semi-hand process? And the answer is yes. So both of those are extremely valid for lovers of Cliff tea. And I'll tell you, the semi-hand process, that stuff almost is affordable. The completely hand processed is the toughest to swallow because it's the hardest, the longest process of all the tea processing, and you have to have real skill to actually be successful in processing that. Not easy. And that's why that stuff costs anywhere upwards of $10,000 a pound. It should cost that much given how much work there is that goes into it. And it's a far cry from the semi-hand process where that can cost up to, maybe a couple $1,000s a pound. And there is a difference. You can really tell when you have one or the other. But overall, for Cliff tea drinkers, you will be very satisfied with any, whether it's fully hand processed or semi-hand processed from within the mouth. The tea bushes, tea trees produce such rich flavor. And again, whether it's semi-hand processed or fully hand processed, these farmers absolutely know what they're doing. So let's talk about today's tea. Golden Divine. Sometimes you hear it referred to as golden tortoise shell, bunch of different names. But this tea tends overall to need a little bit more roasting than the other varietals. There's good news and bad news today. There's really good news. The really good news is you're going to process it today. That's exciting. Wait a minute. Another exaggeration. You're not going to process anything today. What I should have said is you're going to brew it today. You have it in your hands to brew today. The bad news is don't fall in love. If you should fall in love today, you're going to be heartbroken. And you're going to be heartbroken because you have the last of what we currently have. We currently don't have any more of this. You have the last of it. So enjoy and know that we're continuing to look, but right this minute, zero, literally zero left. All right. It is with just great pleasure that I'm able to bring the brilliant tea master to demonstrate how to brew this, to go through all the steps carefully with you, to help you make the perfect 15 cups.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, 早上好。We do 武夷岩茶 Golden Wonder. That's tea leaf, okay? But today is special. How I change it, but that tea is my favorite. So I do 2 cup together. Okay. So we'll see, huh? So
See the tableau?
yeah.
She's got 2 16-ounce Yixing clay pots, 2 16-ounce glass cups. She's gonna brew in the pots. The timing for this is 2 minutes and 20 seconds if you're using Yixing. If you're using ceramic, it's 3 minutes, 30 seconds. Second steeping is gonna be 1 minute, 30 seconds for the clay, 2 minutes, 30 seconds for the ceramic. The special pots, you will use the same amount of time you would normally reduce the grammage, and this is a 5 gram. You'd reduce it 5 gram. So you notice that the tea master heats the outside of the pots. Is that just something fancy to make you all jealous at home? The answer is no. There's a real reason for doing that. Cliff teas love high heat. And by heating the outside and the inside of the pot, you provide the best environment for the best tasting tea. And you notice Tea Master has a rhythm to this. Not in a hurry. Just making sure everything gets handled properly. And so she's put tea into the glass cups, 200-degree water. Make sure that the cups are clean and heated.
We can check. No.
Thank you.
So everything slowly, how when you do, the 2 cup, 3 cup, the, the 4 cup, same rhythm. So slowly. So 5 grams each. We don't have it. This is last one. Oh,
Correct.
last one.
This
Yeah.
is the last of it, the very last of it.
Yeah.
When she's put the leaves in the pot, she's gonna shake the pot. Smell the contents. It's always fun to do that. You smell and you get your first introduction to what this tea is gonna be. She
It's a
draws
2
the water.
minute, 2 minute, 20 seconds, right?
Yes, 2 minutes, 20 seconds. Yeah, the thing I always love watching Tea Master do tea is just a steadiness, a rhythm, not in a hurry, just making sure all the steps are completed. And I urge all of you to adopt a similar rhythm. We all have different rhythms. understand that, because all of us move in different ways, but there should be a steadiness. And if there's a steadiness, it doesn't matter whether you're a little bit faster or a little bit slower, but there's an evenness, a steadiness to how it's done. You notice again, both heating the glass and pouring water over the outside of the pot. These are things that you should do when you're doing your tea. All right. And when we talk about Kung Fu brewing, that's really what we mean. Because Kung Fu simply means mastery. So mastery of brewing, and in fact, this term is very poorly understood because it's used to apply to a lot of areas where mastery is involved, especially if there's some rhythm. It's not just the steps, but there's a certain rhythm to that mastery. And if you ask me, in the Wui Mountains, do they refer to this as Kung Fu tea? Yes, they do. And they have a specific understanding of the brewing process of that tea. Now, they understand what we say when we say Kung Fu large cup tea, because they've been here and they've seen this, they understand this, they appreciate what we're doing with their tea. In the Wui Mountains, and we were there this year, we went to a little kiosk right across from those original 6 bushes and watched them make the small cup version. And it was just fabulous, and it had its rules as well. All right, timer has gone off. First pot is ready. You know, tea master, not in a hurry, very steady. Separating the tea leaves from the tea. I will tell you, I'm over here standing and enjoying the aroma that I already am getting from this tea. Second cup that she made, same thing. And we're going to note some things right away. I already have. There's an aroma with this tea. We're going to talk about that because even among more roasted tea, if you're not getting an aroma, something is being covered up. And by the way, this is why, and you'll see here, when you do this, which you'll do it in a minute, the color is going to be like this. So it's a little darker, certainly a little darker than Quasar last week. And so the question comes up, why does it take such a long time to get tea to market from the Wui Mountains? When it's done at the highest levels, it really takes 5 or 6 months because you pick at the end of April all the way into the beginning of May, and then it's really not ready June, July, August, September until September because they do several roastings. So that's one of the things that's important to remember. And then usually they let it rest for 4 or 5 months before they get it to market because you allow the roast to cool down. And that's what's really important. When that roast cools down, you get that flavor which comes up. Now, if it's badly roasted, or it's a set of varietals that they've roasted together to cover up the different varietals, you're not going to get that. You can rest that until forever. And it's not going to be good. All right. So we already have aroma out of this. I smelt it standing 5 feet away. I'm going to take a close up, smell it. Oh my gosh. This is a clip tea. You've seen the color. Remember, this is done at 200 degrees. So we're going to take an inhalation. And from that inhalation, we're going to learn some things. We're going to enter the quality arena. So we're going to take enough to get a little bit on our tongue, make some judgments about quality. Where on the tongue is the dryness? We're going to get an aftertaste. We're going to make a judgment about that. And eventually, we're going to get energetics. And energetics, quite simply, refers to the energy you get from the tea. So I've had my first taste. And I'm making some judgments about dryness. Understanding that, oh, I have some aftertaste. I don't have the energetics yet, but I'll get it. I'm going to take a second one. And during this time, I'm going to think about aroma, verify the dryness, then also taste. Okay. I have some understanding of this tea right now. It's your turn to brew. I'm going to have the tea master brew with you. So the tea master has brought out a beautiful pot. Wow,
This is my
that's her special pot. That looks like a $10,000 pot. Just in case those of you who haven't seen what a $10,000 pot looks like, you're looking at one. And it's this value because of the artist that did it, the quality of the clay that goes into it, and the overall craftsmanship. And people have asked who don't have one of these, does it make a difference in the flavor? And for those who have one, they already know. Yes, it does. It makes a significant difference in the flavor. One of the reasons is a scientific reason. And that scientific reason is these pots simply get the tea hotter. And they retain that heat longer. Same procedure that you would use ordinarily, and you set the time according to whether you have an Yixing pot or a ceramic pot. And you notice not in a hurry, just going through the steps. Pouring water just carefully into the pot. And then she'll pour on the outside of the pot. And this is what you should be doing for yours. And setting the time, which of course I did, but I didn't press the button quickly. So why is it important to go through these steps like this? Because so many times, and we've seen this so many times when we're outside, particularly in the US, particularly with people who aren't in China. There is this mistaken thought, oh, I've got this magic tea. All I have to do is kind of put water in and wait a little bit, maybe wait until it turns color, and then I'm good to go. And the answer to that is absolutely not. There are precise rules. There are precise rules whether you make it in a large pot, in a small pot, or in a small covered cup. There are rules for doing this. And what are these rules based on? They're based on an accomplishment in terms of flavor, what you're looking for in terms of flavor, what in the Wui Mountains they deem as the ideal flavor that you get from this process. Remember, they've spent 5 months getting this process together. And they're looking very specifically for an end result. And it doesn't matter whether you're a layperson or somebody in the business, you're looking for a defined result. And if you don't get that defined result, you're not going to get the maximum enjoyment. And this, by the way, is the rules with all tea, whether it's a Calif tea, whether it's a green tea, whether it's a yellow tea. If you don't follow the rules, you're not going to get the result. All right.
That lid looks a little bigger than the others.
It is bigger. Kay just pointed out that that lid is bigger. This is the design of the pot. And whether it has, or what, not whether, it clearly, there is a thought about that in terms of end result. However, from our perspective, it's the actual material at the end of the day,
16 ounce,
which makes
16 ounce.
Yeah. 16 ounces.
Wow.
I told you that, yeah. So this is large, duplex, which one is large?
Still 16
This
ounce,
is,
yeah.
yeah. So this is handcrafted by hands. So
And the other thing, before you put that down, show, oh, go ahead.
里面啥？这整个是
Yeah, show this. Show that artistry. So it's got characters on it. It's got the painting on it. So these are beautiful pots. No, the painting.
Ah,
就是
paper,
这个的, yeah.
不是这个，这是 handcraft
Yeah,
and
hand painted.
also this is same thing, you know, the yeah, calligraphy, you know, the other painting, you know, this is sounds.
Listen to that sound. That sound, and it is different.
It seems more substantial, like less fragile.
It is more substantial. However, less fragile has limits. If
Yeah.
I drop it from here, it's going to be a sad day for me for many, many days, because that will be a broken pot,
这是我
which we don't permit in the shop. All right. So you've gone through, it's your turn entering the quality arena. Take your time. It's a 200-degree sip or inhalation. And you're going to talk to me about this tea. And you took notes last week about Quasar. So you're going to think about this in relationship to Quasar and tell me the differences, because there are clear differences in this. And by the way, while you're thinking about this, I'll tell you of a story of a customer in here. When we first had this in here, customer loved this so much that one day she came in and bought something like 6 ounces, but it was all 1 ounce packages. And we didn't know, she didn't tell us why she did that. We assumed she was going to give it to as gifts. And she did. She took it back to temples in China and temples in Korea, because she's a Buddhist, and gifted this to people who had mentored her and helped her along the way. And in all cases, they were shocked that she had this particular tea. And the question was always the same: where in the world did you get this?
We have some comments now. Aroma has some chicory and honey.
Chicory and honey aroma is one of the leading comments. And I like this because the chicory implies some roastiness. It implies complex flavors. Great start.
It was honey, caramel, butter, and plum in the scent. I can smell this all day.
Honey, caramel, plum in the scent. And this particular commentator says, hey, give me this all day and I'll be in tea heaven.
I was looking for what this scent was, and chicory is it. Caramel and plum too.
Chicory, as the called out initial flavor, is exactly matching up with what one of the participants was thinking about and trying to figure out what that flavor was. And then honey and plum, yeah, that works too. But the chicory was the call out. And by the way, that was the call out for me. And as a leading comment, great catch.
Initially dry, astringent, on tongue and back of throat, but then feels silky on the tip of the tongue.
Initially dry and astringent on tongue and back of the throat, and then silky at the front. And I want to pause there because you're pointing out something that's really, really important. A bad roast would never be called silky. You called out silky because this has gentleness to it. It has a mellowness. This is a great heavy roast, but you're not leading with that because it's in the background. The roast brought out the chicory. The roast, since this is sat for a bit, now is turned into that mellowness, and you get everything underneath that's supposed to be for this particular tea varietal. This is a high quality Cliff tea.
I find all of the mouthfeel to be silky.
Kay mentions all of the mouthfeel to be silky. And again, I love this commentary because you do have some of the Cliff teas in the market. You taste them and you can taste some stuff going on, but they're rough. This has no roughness. And by the way, for those of you who haven't detected already, we have brilliant new insights today with a new cameraman today, camera person, I should say, today. And that's Kay. Kay is serving as the camera person and the producer today, making sure I stay in the frame and, you know, stop exaggerating and all that stuff. I have to tell the truth when she's the camera person.
I also make Elise look very confident and seamless.
You both are seamless.
Another comment, the lovely scent continues in the liquor, and minerality is certainly present. The caramel flavor continues.
Caramel flavor continues, and this commentator mentioned minerality. None of you up to now led with minerality. Some teas, when they first enter the shop, and remember, we get them right away. We get them in October, sometimes into September, but certainly in October sometime. And that minerality in some of them is so over the top that usually we try and point customers away from that. We know from experience what minerality is going to die down. When this first came in the shop, the minerality was truly over the top. It's like, okay. only for very mature Cliff tea drinkers. But then within 6 months, died down to where we predicted it would. And while it hasn't left, this, by the way, is proof to you, oh, he didn't make this up. This really comes from the Wulong Mountains, because that's the imprimatur, the symbol of Wulong teas. Gotta have some minerality.
The aroma in the liquor is divine.
The aroma in the liquor is divine. It is. As I said, when the tea master first made this, I was immediately struck by the aroma. When you're in a small room and you make this for people, that's one of the first things that comes to mind. It's like, oh my God, what is this that smells so darn good? So while you're continuing to taste and think about this, let me share, go ahead.
Jennifer adds the Empress light.
Oh, I like this comment. Jennifer added that this is Empress light. Now, for those of you who don't know what Empress is, she is and isn't at the same time referring to a true Empress. The real origin of this comment is we have a tea called Empress here, which is a very, very fine Cliff tea that for some period of time we thought we were out of. And then when we were reorganizing things in the shop, we found a little bit more. And it does have that aroma, it has that richness. Great catch.
The energy is warming, actually calming to my wobbly tummy.
Warming and calming, especially to a wobbly tummy. And in general, what you'll find about good Cliff teas is they're almost always grounding. They're almost always good if you're starting out with a somewhat upset stomach. Really, really good at getting you settled.
How long does the Cliff tea need to be kept before it loses excess of minerality, but maintains enough for structure?
So this is a great question. If a Cliff tea comes in and its minerality is so overwhelming that it's hard to taste down into the heart of the tea, how long in general before that minerality will tamp down and you'll be able to understand what's underneath? And so there's no exact rule because tea by tea is a little different. But what we've found is that the longest it takes is about a year. Typically 6 months is enough. But when rock orchid first came in here, it took a year for that minerality to tamp down. But boy, oh boy, once it tamped down, that was worth the wait. And that's the thing about having experience with Cliff teas. Tea Master and I have tons of experience with Cliff teas. So we're able to taste stuff. And a good example, aside from rock orchid, that comes to mind is Singular Treasure. When that thing came in here, that was so overwhelming that we actually had a customer who really wanted to try it, made a cup, and 5 minutes into the cup called me over and said, I'm not sure that I can finish this. And I knew exactly what was being referred to because that minerality, there was a sword of minerality right at the entrance, and that thing wasn't going away. And that thing took about 7 or 8 months to tamp down. And now when you drink it, you taste all these wonderful flavors, including hints of fruit, sweetness, and the minerality hasn't gone away totally, but it's not guarded by a sword of minerality as it was when it first came in. So 6 months is the usual, can be up to a year.
Does it lose its structure at some point?
Can cliff teas lose their structure at some point? And the answer is yes. And it really relies on a couple things. First off, if you're not storing it at 68 or below, it'll lose its structure in 2 years. If you are storing it at 68 degrees or below, I'm talking about Fahrenheit, by the way, you have at least 10 to 12 years of easy storage. We have stored some stuff for up to 20 years and still has structure. We've tasted stuff in China that's been stored for 40 years. It doesn't have that same structure. And in fact, for all of you, you would be disappointed. I mean, it sounds great. Well, let me have a 40-year-old, but it isn't that it tastes bad. It just leaves. If I blindfolded you and gave you a 40-year-old, you'd say, well, this tastes flat. And you'd be right. It does taste flat. It's lost its structure. So somewhere between 20 and 40 years, if you're storing it correctly, it's going to lose structure. But for sure, you've got 10 years, and we have successfully aged stuff for 20 years. But remember, we follow our own rules. Things are really cool in here, temperature-wise, and we maintain that because we're doing that in order to maintain structure. And the Chinese will tell you the same thing.
The sweet aftertaste persists throughout the cup.
Sweet aftertaste persisting throughout the cup. And again, most of the time, when you taste cliff teas outside of this shop or outside of the Wulong Mountains, very rarely will you hear sweet aftertaste because most of them are not coming from the locations in the Wulong Mountains that ours are coming from. And so you're getting these teas that are rough. They're not silky in any way. They don't have much of a sweetness to them. And they're just not for prime time.
Jeannie says, I get a roasted cocoa aftertaste.
Oh, I love this. I love this. So Jeannie points out a roasted cocoa aftertaste. And why do I love this so much is because she turned back to the origin. And the origin is that there's roast in this. And yet the roast is not pure roast. If this were crappy, that's probably not radio proficient. If this were poorly, overly roasted, you wouldn't get coconut. And the fact that she got coconut and mixed that with roasting, this shows good tea, good provenance.
I'm getting a real balance.
Hey, love this. Kay noted, and eventually I was going to get to this, and I'm really glad that Kay got to it, balance. The best of the cliff teas, yeah, they shake your hand and they tell you, yeah, I've got some fruit, or I've got some minerality, or I got some roast. But the best of them at the end of the day have balance. And when you're thinking of teas that you fall in love with, you're thinking balance.
Jeannie wants to say it was chocolate, not coconut.
Oh, chocolate, not
Toasted.
coconut. Okay.
Also, Rob said he had a hint of chocolate in the warmed leaves.
Yeah, there's clearly, and this is typical of your more roasted cliff teas, that there's going to be some hint of chocolate, more or less, depending on how your taste buds are reacting. I get the chocolate, and I almost always for the more heavily roasted ones do perceive that chocolate. And sometimes the chocolate is leading, sometimes it's underneath. For me, this one's underneath.
Jennifer says energetics are definitely warm.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Jennifer points out that the energetics of this are warming. I've been standing here perspiring because they're very warming. And again, the best of your Cliff teas tend to be just that. Very warming, warming for the extremities, hands and feet. These are great for warm-ups.
I'm needing to take off my cool morning sweater.
I'm needing to take off my cool, drizzly morning sweater. And yes, I feel, because I'm actually wearing layers, and I'm feeling, oh my gosh, maybe I have too many layers on. But the layers were because when I went out this morning, 51, drizzly, cold, windy, and that's all gone away. In fact, before we started this tea, I still had a slight chill in me. I don't have that anymore. Good. This has been a great session, great commentary. Love where you've taken this. Love the ending point of balance. Love the fact that you covered all the terms for Cliff Tea. And while nobody made a direct comparison to Quasar, you can think about this. I hope you took good notes because next week we have a fantastic Cliff Tea, theatrical, all teed up for you. So your responsibility this week is to stay healthy. I look forward to seeing everybody next week. Bye-bye now. Bait.com negative. Oh, mailman.